Hello, Laziali. We are back, and I know Alistair is laughing, but after that incredible match of last night, it's Champions League, right? Football. We played so well, and we talked about Champions League, so I thought it was good to bring it back. Was that the face you made yesterday after the first goal of Lazio?
Um, you like that picture, don't you?
I love
It's
it. I love
well,
it.
what a stirring introduction, Vittorio. Yeah, was that the face I made? Yeah, probably something similar. Well, you know what? Last night was one of these games where I was literally jumping off the sofa onto my feet four times. Obviously, only two of those goals counted, but four times was probably about four times more than I expected going into that game. So it was fantastic. Honestly, I mean, we spent a lot of time last season talking about how much Maurizio Sarri has improved this team in big games. But I think after the start to this season, we weren't expecting to go down there and deliver that kind of result and performance. So yeah, in a very good mood today on the back of that. How about you?
Yeah, not bad at all. I mean, what a weekend so far. I mean, Roma lost, Lazio won, Ross County won as well, so it's a positive week. By the way, Alistair, last time we won twice consecutive win at Naples in Serie A was 36-37. And after that, I mean, last time we won was with Stefano Pioli. So, I mean, what happened with Sarri? We are able now to win away against Napoli. And I know Garcia said the first half we played better, but I think overall Lazio deserved to win yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, you can see where he's coming from. I mean, the first 20, 25 minutes, actually, to be honest, all the way up until the goal, we were really under pressure. And to be honest, was a bit alarmed by the way Lazio started that game. Napoli were dominating, they were putting a lot of pressure. Lazio couldn't keep hold of the ball, they barely had possession. Varaskelia was looking dangerous. They were creating not kind of clear cut chances, but a good series of chances. Provedel had to make a very good save. At the start, it looked like, God, this is going to be quite a long night for us. So it's interesting, isn't it? I don't know if it tells us something about this team's mentality, or maybe we can discuss what it tells us about this team, but they basically create one moment of quality, incredible quality for that goal, both in the assist from Anderson and the finish from Alberto. And from that one moment, everything seemed to change. The team was suddenly full of confidence. And look, I know Napoli obviously
Hmm.
went and immediately replied, but it was basically from that moment onwards that Lazio actually started to play, started to believe, started to be the team that we saw them be at times last season. Um, so yeah, I think maybe that goal just lifted them in a way. It reminded them of their own ability, perhaps.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the first 30 minutes, I was really concerned. I was thinking, my God, here we're going to finish like 3-0 down. Instead, we managed to defend well. I thought we made some mistakes that helped Napoli. But when Felipe Anderson finally had a couple of rush, I think the things changes. They start a little bit to be concerned about the Brazilian who is back in form. And yeah, the goal changed the match. But on the other side, we have to say that mentally, this team was different because you go ahead with the first chance. After 2 minutes, you can see the equalizer in a unlucky way. And I mean, in the past, how many times we saw this happen and Lazio suddenly collapse and we go and lose this match? And you mentioned that you jump on your sofa 4 times. I mean, how often did we see our team scoring, goal get disallowed, and the team lose the control of the match, the focus, and we lose? So I thought yesterday, mentally, this team has proven that we are really improved on that side. And this is very important because this was one of the weakness of this club, right?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. You've made a very good point there. I will admit it's that they constantly were coming up against big problems that they had to solve, whether that was the pressure they immediately found themselves under, or the goal Napoli immediately got back, which, like you say, because it's a bit unlucky, big deflection. I think it can be even worse. If you concede a goal like that, it can feel even worse than if they'd scored a beautiful goal from 35 yards or something, just because you feel a bit hard done by. But again, responded to that really well. And like you say, the two Guendouzi inspired second half goals were, both being chalked off. Again, it's something that can easily knock a team off their stride. So I think you made a really good point there, and it does say a lot about this team. I think that then again, the counter argument is kind of going back to the first couple of games of the season where this team is proving they can have the right mentality and really approach the games in the right way when it matters in these big matches, but they need to learn to have that same level of focus and control in every game, and that's such a hard thing to do. But you can't really be spilling points against Genoa and Lecce. So
No.
I'm hoping this can be the catalyst. It would have been pretty damaging and depressing and demoralizing to go into an international break with no points, because the international break obviously gives you a chance to work on things, but it also gives the media and the fans, 2 weeks to basically complain nonstop about everything and make the atmosphere worse. So I think it helps a lot that they're able to go into that spell and actually have a bit of positivity and optimism back.
Yeah, the other point is that you arrive to this very important match and very difficult match with 0 points. You have a lot of pressure. How often did we see in the past Lazio pretty much not showing up in these games? I remember a lot of away games against Napoli that we didn't show up, or against Juventus. So it was important to see the first 20 minutes, because against Genoa, we lost because of those first 20 minutes. And against Napoli, they started really strong. You mentioned Provedel made a couple of good saves, etc. I mean, if you could see there, it's going to be a completely different game. Instead, we stayed focused, we suffered together, and then when Napoli start to ease off the pressure, we made the difference. And we have to mention, in the second half, it was a completely different match. I think they had a huge chance at the beginning, but after that, it was only Lazio, right? We scored another goal. We scored, well, other two goals, to be honest. There were three goals. We hit the post. We had a lot of chances. So that was really encouraging. And that proved, like Sari said, that it wasn't a physical condition issue. It was just mentally, right?
Yeah, and I think that we had a few comments about this, but this is one of the first sign. Let's be realistic. The depth of the squad is improved. I think that it made a big difference. I'm sure, get onto Guendouzi and his introduction. I mean, that's a guy who's barely trained with the team, if at all, to be honest. And he came on and made a huge impact. But I think as well, we saw more from Kamada than previously. The headline being that he scores the winning goal, but I actually thought overall his performance was pretty good, and he was linking up with the rest of the team pretty well.
Yeah.
We like you said at the very start, Felipe Anderson has appeared on the scene, but even Luca Pellegrini coming off the bench, and he makes that crucial block right at the end, and he goes off celebrating it like the Laziale that he is. And I think it was just fantastic to see kind of players coming onto the pitch and making an impact in that way. And we were crying out for that. I mean, how many times last season was it saying with Cancellieri or with Marcos Antonio or whoever it was that they need to take the chances they get? And if that's 5 minutes or 45 minutes, you still need to go on and kind of show what you've got. And that's something that I think happened last night, which is promising.
Yeah, we have a question from JC saying, how do you feel about having this much depth? We aren't used to this. No, we aren't. And I mean, how is it good to replace Kamada with Wooden C? I mean, we usually put in Basic, etc. And the French man comes in, and even better than Kamada probably. And then you take off Felipe Anderson, who was done, and you bring in Pedro, who had a huge chance yesterday. We really missed an incredible chance. So we have so many options. Finally, again, Ciro Immobile sub, Castellano get in. I mean, this is
He's
what we're
actually,
Isaacsen for Zaccagni. I mean, this is what we were looking for, right? So this is really encouraging, especially in a season so difficult like this one. We have the Champions League. We did a podcast about the Champions League draw, so it was much needed. And finally, we can say that we have quality on our bench that we never had. Now, I don't know how much Basic will play this season, so I'm questioning why he didn't leave. But when we'll see come in and instead of losing quality, maybe it increase. I don't know. What did you make about the French performance?
yeah, fantastic. And to be honest, quite surprising. I've seen a bit of Guendouzi before at Arsenal, Marseille, and I just the player I remember seeing wasn't really someone who comes on and makes that kind of impact in an attacking slash creative sense to a game. I thought he was so impressive, and the other thing that struck me was, and this isn't, by the way, a Milinkovic Savic comparison at all. I think we're never going to find another Milinkovic Savic. But I think what he does do is he gives you a kind of target in the midfield that we've otherwise been missing. If Milinkovic Savic hasn't been there, your midfield of Cataldi, Alberto, Kamada, there's no real height or ability to kind of take the ball out of the air from that three. Whereas Guendouzi comes on, and when that defense was under a bit of pressure towards the end, they were kind of picking him out with passes, and he seemed to kind of pluck them out of the air a bit in the way that Milinkovic used to. And I think having a kind of physical target in that midfield will help as well. But yeah, I mean, he was so unlucky to finish his debut without an assist or a goal to his name. I mean, I feel sorry for the guy because it was not his fault that either of those goals didn't count. Zaccagni offside is just a millisecond too soon.
Yeah.
And the other one's just one of these, refereeing quirks that doesn't go his way. But the overall performance, I think everybody was very impressed by.
Okay, you mentioned the referee. I get the first goal is offside, but the second one, are we serious? Is that offside?
Well, the way this was explained on the zone was that it's about what the involvement of the offside means. Like the Zaccagni was offside, but it's how that affects Di Lorenzo, or it affects the movement of the goal. The action, I guess. And I don't know. I think it's probably one of these ones that is correct by the book, but in real time feels a bit harsh because it didn't really look like Zaccagni's, whatever it was, shoulder being offside made much of an impact on that goal being scored. You weren't happy with the referee, I know this, but we did also get a comment saying, please don't spend time moaning about the referee.
That's why I'm not. I just asked that question and that's it. So
I can see you. You're like shaking, wanting to say something. You can
no,
if you
Luis
give you 30
Alberto,
seconds.
Luis Alberto said everything yesterday, so I'm fine with that. I'm totally fine. But yeah, Guendouzi is a great option, and it's funny because Alistair, we have a question about the deepest talent available in our squad since the Cragnotti days, probably, and people asking how will we play in midfield. Well, like all big teams, we'll finally rotate, right? There's going to be matches where Luis Alberto play, other ones where Kamada will start, other where we'll see. There's even Vecino, Rovella. I think that finally the starting 11 won't be dictated by injuries, but it will depend on the form, on the opponent, and things like that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I I'm slightly reluctant to go around hailing this as the best squad we've had since the Cragnotti era, because like we were pretty happy with the mercato at the start of last year as well. And when you're looking at it on paper, then we were saying, we've got depth finally. We've got Marcos Antonio coming into this team to be a regista. We've got Cancellieri who's going to develop and become a star. And not everything works out. And that might be the same this season. Any of these players who have started well might not actually end up being the players we want them to be. So I'm not convinced about that yet. I think we need more time to understand how good this squad is. What has been promising from last night is seeing that I think Luis Alberto is ready to take on that star role now. He's had to share that with Sergei for so many years, but now he is being looked to as, you are the star man in this midfield. We need you to create, to score, to be the guy we look to. And I mean, what a game from him last night. He had an unbelievable match.
Do you think the first goal is, you have to give credit more to Luis Alberto or to Felipe Anderson? Because even the assist is unbelievable. It's a great assist, right?
Yeah, fantastic. It's quite hard to work out where he finds, and I think Alberto wasn't really expecting it either. It was kind of probably why he ended up doing the finish he did, because it was so unexpected that the ball was going to even reach him. So he had to kind of quickly adjust and invent something. But yeah, I think that we got a question, I don't have it in front of me, but I remember seeing it about, is this now the moment that Alberto and Anderson are going to come and be consistently playing at that level? And I think we've spent years watching those two players, and I think what we've learned is probably not. Sadly, we know they're both capable of that kind of performance. They're capable of playing at such an unbelievably high level. But the problem, especially with Anderson, but slightly with both of them, has been finding that consistency. So I do hope that that's the case, but I wouldn't say off the back of one game that suddenly everything's going to change and they're going to be playing like that every week. Obviously, I would like that to be the case.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned Milinkovic Savic, and I think that for this team playing like that, Luis Alberto was more important than Sergei, and we saw it even last year. I think the important for this season is Luis Alberto and Felipe Anderson are obviously very important players for us. But with Kamada, if Zaccagni comes back to play at his level, with Guedonsi coming in, I think we have other options. So that if Felipe Anderson plays like he did against Lecce, we can still win the match relying on maybe Kamada to step up, Zaccagni, and so on. So I think that's one of the biggest improvement of this team this season. Obviously, Luis Alberto will be a key player, and we know it. But I think we can have options. And now, I think the biggest thing is you can even bench Luis Alberto in some situation and play with Guedonsi and Kamada, or even Vecino and Kamada, etc., etc. Because one of the concerns is that if Luis Alberto play every single game, he won't finish the season. We need him in the most important matches. So we need to rotate, and we have to accept that, and we have to hope as well that Sarri will rotate, because otherwise we're going to arrive at the end of the season that some key players will be done.
And how do you see that midfield looking? Because it's been so long, really, since we've been able to ask that question, because it's been locked in for years with Sergei and Alberto, and then previously Lucas Leiva, and more recently Cataldi between them. But now we're talking about who the starting three is. We're even talking about, do they switch it a bit, make it, you could even do a 4-2-3-1, push Alberto further forward, or there's been a lot more discussion, is what I'm
Yeah.
saying, about how we line this midfield up, which is a bit of a novelty.
Well, let's be honest. Last year, everybody could predict the starting 11 of Lazio, right? The only doubts were Hisai or Lazzari, and sometimes Pedro will come in instead of Zaccagni, etc. All the rest, you knew it. Casale, Romagnoli, Cataldi, blah, blah, blah. Now, finally, we have options. And again, I want to see it. I want to see Sarri rotate because I didn't expect to see Guendouzi in such condition already at that level. So, like Lazzari didn't play against Napoli, I expect that maybe against Juventus, Guendouzi start instead of Kamada, I'm supposing. Not saying that this will be. But again, we are a big team. We need to rotate. We need to play different players depending on our opponent or what type of football do you want to play. More physical, then maybe you take off Luis Alberto, you bring Guendouzi and Vecino. More technically, I mean, this is the advantage of having so much quality, especially in the midfield. And again, let's not forget about it. There's the Champions League. The 19th of September, we're playing against Atletico Madrid at home. And then I think the weekend before, there's Juventus Lazio. So, you cannot pretend to play the same 11 against Juventus and then 3 days later against Atletico Madrid, right? So we have the options. We need to rotate.
Yeah, absolutely. That's going to be the key. And I think if you have, if you kind of reduce, I guess, the difference in quality between the players, that makes that a lot easier. I mean, if your options are Sergey or Basic, you're going up here or down here basically, and it's a big drop off, and that's always been the problem. So we'll see. I mean, like I say, I think we do need to wait a little bit to understand what those levels look like. Whether Isaacson is, another Zaccagni, or whether Isaacson is another Cancellieri. We don't know yet what Castellanos is going to be capable of. We don't know yet how well, even someone like Pellegrini, we don't really know well. Even though he spent 6 months with us, we still don't really know how well he fits into this team. So I think there's a lot of questions yet to be answered, but certainly it does feel like there's bigger depth. I guess this is a good time to move into a bit of a chat about the mercato. Now that the window's closed, we can review it a little bit. I mean, I know you've taken umbrage, Vittorio, with some of the post mercato reviews that have been going around.
Before talking about this, the last day there has been this mystery about Greenwood for signing for Lazio. I was a little bit concerned. I mean, the player is great, even though he didn't play the last couple of years or so. But knowing what comes with him, would you have signed him for Lazio?
No.
Or it wasn't the right decision?
No, absolutely not. I think that he's become, yes, a player who's so laden with baggage, let's say, especially in the UK. I mean, that is a player that nobody's going to want to touch at all in the UK. So, I mean, obviously my perspective might be a bit different because I'm from the UK and I've heard all about this case for the last 18 months or however long it's been going on. But yeah, I was certainly relieved that didn't go ahead. And I think it's safe to say, Lazio is a club that the international image is so low already, for fairly obvious reasons that we don't need to go back into, but that the club doesn't exactly help itself with. And I think to go and sign a guy like Greenwood would not help, put it that way.
Yeah, again, I have to agree with you. I mean, the player was one of the most interesting, but all the situation behind him. Let's not forget that when this summer Manchester United said that they wanted to bring him back, they have been hammered by the press, and they changed immediately mind and said, no, we're going to release him. So that's a good test, I would say, that makes me think that Lazio made the right decision. So we're going to see what happens.
And the whole time, though, I mean...
Yep.
Sorry. I was going to say the whole time, because I had a few people texting me about this on the day, and I was saying, no, if you take everything else aside from that case, the two things that would also make me surprised are A, I don't think Lazio really need him because Broughton Isaacson and they've got Pedro there already, and B, it's deadline day. There's no way Lazio are gonna get that deal done on deadline day. They don't ever do anything on deadline day. Um, so there was that as well.
Well, I would add C. He didn't play in the last 2 years. He's gonna need 6 months to get back. So what are you doing? You're gonna test him on Champions League to give him time to adapt, etc. I mean, that's not gonna happen. So yeah, honestly, I was a little bit concerned. It's true that Pedro's fit condition, there are some question mark. He wasn't called in the last game at home. Yesterday, he had a huge chance and he pretty much collapsed. So there are question mark. There are rumors that he received an unbelievable offer from Saudi Arabia and he's thinking about it. So Lazio wanted to have another option there. But I mean, you could have find other players with less of an issue behind them. So I think I don't know if Lazio really made that decision or it simply didn't work out. But I'm happy that Greenwood didn't come to Lazio. By the way, he moved to Getafe, if I'm not wrong. He moved to Spain on loan, though. So we're gonna see what
Yeah.
happened there. But Alistair, this brings me to the question I want to ask you because transfer market is close, and as I said at the beginning, I thought this was the best of the Lotito era. But it looks like Italian newspaper absolutely don't agree with me. I mean, some gave 5 out of 10 to Lazio transfer market. Gazzetta dello Sport gave Lazio 6 out of 10 and gave 8 out of 10 to Roma. I'm a little bit confused. I honestly don't think that Roma made a better transfer market than Lazio. But hey, maybe I'm wrong.
Is this not the same every year though? Is it not always this winds you up every year, and the griglia di partenza winds you up every year. It's like, come on, the year that these papers start predicting Lazio in the top four and saying they've had a good market, your head's going to explode. So, yeah, I mean, like, there's nothing to be particularly surprised about there. Um, I think that to kind of be optimistic and to understand why Lazio have had a good mercato, you need to kind of understand what the club and what it needs, and also the various situations around it. Because on the face of it, losing your best player is a bad start to your market, and it is. But then again, if you understand that most people were kind of at a stage with Sergei that they were willing to let him go for the right price, to get that price from him with 1 year left was a good deal, and that money can then be invested again. And the way it's been invested, people are happy about. Now, obviously, there's no showstopper signing in there. There very rarely is with Lazio, and so that's another reason that they're not going to get marked particularly highly, because Roma signed Romelu Lukaku, so maybe that's in the eyes of people who are doing these grades that enough to give them a high mark, in the same way that last year they would have said the same because they brought in Dybala. But then again, is that what it's so you're talking about individuals rather than the needs of the team? So I think that in terms of a market that has addressed the needs of the team, Lazio have had a good market, because the things we wanted were Avice Immobile, tick, a new winger, tick, midfield depth, desperately needed, tick, new fullback, tick, the second goalkeeper situation needed resolved, which it eventually was. And so I would say the only thing, and I'm amazed about this because I didn't expect it, but the only thing we didn't get that I would have liked is another centre back to provide a bit more depth in that position. But to be left with that as the only thing that I feel wasn't addressed is pretty amazing.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. But I mean, Roma lost Ibanez and signed Llorente, who they already had last year, and that's 8 out of 10 of the market. I'm a little bit concerned. I really don't get it. But yeah, I mean, I thought Lazio ticked all the boxes, pretty much all the boxes, because yeah, obviously we need a central defender if something happened to Romagnoli and Casale. We still have Patrick, that I know it's not Paolo Maldini, but I mean, he started 2 years ago with us, so I think he's a good solution. Obviously, probably for the Champions League, you wanted someone with more experience than Hila. So I ask you, would rumors were that Lazio was thinking about Leonardo Bonucci, and Bonucci signed with Union Berlin just the last day because he was waiting for us to make an offer, and we didn't. You thought Bonucci was the right decision? Would have been the player we needed there, or he's he's not good anymore for that?
Um, I think that kind of depends on the terms of the deal, doesn't it? Because I think the deal he signed with Union was 1 year with the option of a second. But I'm not sure what salary he's getting. So I would happily take Bonucci in this Lazio squad, absolutely. If you're comparing that to the other backups of Gila and Patrick, of course you'll take Bonucci. But the question is, what's he being paid, and what sacrifices do you have to make elsewhere in the squad in order for that to happen? Because I don't think it's worth forking out a huge proportion of your budget in order to bring in a guy who would be third choice behind Casale and Romagnoli. So yeah, in the end, I'm not too bothered that didn't happen, because obviously it's not a long-term signing. It's not really a signing that would be within the general strategy that we've seen the last couple of years, which has been rejuvenating the squad, bringing the average age down. It got so old under Inzaghi. The squad was so old by the time Inzaghi left. We've managed to really refresh that squad in the last couple of years. So it would be a bit of a backward step in that regard. But what do you think about, what does this say about Iglitare or not? The fact that he's gone after so long as a sporting director, and things seem to have been as good, if not better.
Can you stop mentioning Glitare? Otherwise, my dog will keep barking. You see, you have to stop. Don't talk about
You
him.
said his name.
He doesn't exist anymore. Well, I mean, the question is this summer transfer the proof that it was all Iglistare's fault, or it was something different that made us do such better transfer market? I mean, one of the things we didn't mention is that this year we didn't sign Kamenovic type of players. We didn't sign Cancellieri type of players. We signed the players we need, right? We didn't sign, I don't know, Kamenovic type of player to make Luis Alberto agents happy. We didn't sign a player to make one Verona happy, to fix the balance sheet, etc. We got the players we needed. We pushed Juventus to give us Roella and Pellegrini at a low fee. We worked out with Michelin to get a young right back, a winger that we needed. So I think that was really important. I mean, that's one of the biggest difference compared to the past. With Tare, we signed a winger when we were playing 3-5-2. With Tare, we signed a left back when we were playing with a three-man defense. Players that didn't make sense. And probably signing Bonucci would have been the same, right? Bonucci is a three-man defender, and we play with a four-man defense. So maybe that would have been a Iglitare deal, right? I think this is something that we tend to forget. Murici playing, fast ball, no long balls. I mean, plays that simply didn't make sense. And this is one of the most important changes we made this year, and this is why I think our transfer market was so good this summer.
Yes, not just starting your transfer search by filtering all available players to wingers and going from there. we only signed one winger this window. It's pretty amazing, actually. I mean, it must be a new record after the last few years. Um, I mean, it is incredible that it's taken this long to sign Avicii Immobile. I mean, we started this podcast in 2017, and I think we've been talking about it literally every year since then, every window. I mean, it's remarkable. And Marici, like you say, was as close as we got, and he was just not the right fit. Um, so anyway, look, we don't need to go back over all of that, but yeah, I think it has been really positive mercato. I mean, you mentioned Rovella there. I almost completely forgotten we've got Rovella. It's
And,
like another bonus yet to come.
and I tell you this, and I want your opinion about this. I think Rovella's going to be a huge signing. Maybe not this year, but in 2 years' time, I think he's going to be a top player, not only for us, but for the Italian national team. I think he's very, very good. The fact that he started last year with Monza and Monza had a very good season tells you that
Mm.
he's already at that level. Now, he's not playing because he had an injury and he's just got back training a couple of weeks ago. And you know that with Sarri, especially in that position, you need time to learn all the movement, etc. But I really feel that Rovella is, for me, the perfect example of how things changed with Lazio. Usually, getting the young, talented Italian player is not the type of player Lazio sign usually. And he's not Cancellieri, who is interesting but not high level. Rovella was already starting for Monza, one of the best midfielder, starting for the Italian under 21. Juventus didn't want to sell him. They has been forced because of financial issue. I mean, yes, he's not going to start soon. He didn't play a second, but I really think that this is a signing that in 2 years' time we're going to talk about it and say, Rovella signing was huge.
Yeah, I could not agree more with you. I think that for all the reasons you've outlined, it's a really important signing. But also going back to the Tari discussion thing, he also is a player who really fits. It makes a lot of sense. It's like Ravella and Sarri feels like a good mix and something that works for everyone. It feels like a good club for him to be at this stage of his career. And like you say, it's not the same as we signed two young players from Verona, Cancellieri and Casale, young Italian players, and neither of them had much in the way of Serie A experience. And there you go. It's a 50-50 hit rate. One was a success and one wasn't. With Rovella, you're not making that kind of gamble, really, like you say, because he's someone who's already played very regularly and not scrapping for relegation, but playing for a very decent Monza team last season. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's really one to look out for again when we're talking about bringing down the age of this team and making it a team for the future. That was one position where you're looking at Cataldi and you're thinking he's been a great servant and done a great job under Sarri, but is he the long term option there? He's probably not. So yeah, yet again, more depth, more quality, and more potential because now you're looking around this squad and you're seeing several young players in Casale and Rovella and Isaacson and Zaccagni, and there's a lot of kind of promise to get even better in this squad, which is part of what's so exciting about it.
Alistair, before we wrap it up, I know you want to say something and we're going to tell it at the end of the podcast, and I want to know what our listener thinks about that. But international break, Mancini's out, five Lazio players called to the national team. Provedel, Casale for the first time, Romagnoli, Zaccagni, Immobile. It's not a coincidence, right?
Well, no, it was baffling at times. Yeah, under Mancini, even when Lazzari was absolutely flying, he was being overlooked, and And yeah, now you're looking at a Casale straight in there. Obviously, I mean that none of them, I guess, you would look at as huge surprises, would you? On form, but it's not always been picked on form as well. So that's promising, and it's good. It's good to see that players are rewarded for good form. Because yeah, under Mancini there were some slightly baffling call ups.
Slightly.
Yeah, but I mean, I know Spalletti will probably look at this. I know it was similar under Mancini, but Spalletti, I think, is more similar to Sarri in his style and in the sense of looking to play the ball and play the game a bit. And perhaps he looks at this Lazio team and sees the way they're playing, and he thinks, I'll have a bit of that. Those guys know what to do.
And do you agree with me that the true fact that Mancini quit the national team is because we signed even Rovella and Pellegrini, and he said, I cannot call players from Lazio, so I'm done?
Yeah, it was definitely that, and not the 20 million per year salary at Saudi, which was a nice coincidental job that became available just afterwards. Yeah.
Obviously, he didn't know nothing about. I thought that was quite embarrassing. I mean, he should have quit a month ago when things started instead of keep it going till he signed the contract. I thought that was awful. But uh, honestly, I think that after you didn't qualify to the World Cup, you should have quit immediately. And instead, he didn't. But we're not talking about the national team. We're talking about Lazio. And talking about Lazio, I know because you sent me like 155 text messages about this, and I want people to know about it because I know people trust me more than you. So you're convinced that the rule have changed now that you're back in Italy. Lazio won, while when you were in Scotland, Lazio lost the first two games. So it's all your credit, and it's not like I said last year that every game you were watching, Lazio would have lose, right?
Facts are facts, Vittorio. two losses from two while I was out of Rome against Lecce and Genoa. Then I fly back to Italy, just immediately sort everything out. The team feels more at ease. The players feel relaxed because they know I'm here if they need me. I go to Roma Friday night, first game of the season for me, and Milan absolutely wiped the floor with them for an hour at least. So you're welcome is all I can say. It's about time I got some thanks, and instead of your theories.
I think this is the first game you watch from Roma at the Stadio Olimpico that they don't win, right?
That's definitely not true.
Well, no, it's impossible because I think Roma of the last 10 games of Serie A just won one, which is incredible. I mean, it's embarrassing.
I saw today that Mourinho's got the worst win percentage in Serie A of any Roma coach in the last 10 years.
Well, I'm serious when I say that in the last 10 games of Serie A, Roma just won one out of 10. For a club like Roma, it's...
So what are you talking about then? Stop.
Anyway, fun fact, and we can wrap it up here. Provedel have won 4 consecutive games at Naples against Napoli. 2 with Lazio, 2 with Spezia. Incredible.
That is amazing, actually. I didn't realize that.
But again, Provedel had an incredible game. I didn't like him against Genoa. I thought against Napoli he was back in form. And again, would you start Provedel, Donnarumma, or Vicario for Italy now?
Yeah, it's an interesting choice. Well, no, it will be the international break will actually be quite interesting now to see. I mean, it's always great as a Scotland fan at the moment because we're the best team in the world. But, the Italy team will be quite interesting to see what Spalletti does and what Lazio involvement there is.
Well, I think with a team full of Italian, something incredible has to happen to not get players called, right? Again, Provedel was very good. Romagnoli, we didn't mention Romagnoli. What a game he had yesterday. Even Cataldi played well. He hasn't been called, and I understand that he's not a top player, but seeing the options there without Verratti, etc., he can be in the numbers of name that could be considered, right?
Yeah. No, I can understand why Cataldi doesn't get in, but No, you're right. He did have a good game. Yeah, good to see. I think we should wrap this up.
Yep. Thank you again, Alistair. Thanks everybody for listening. Especially thanks to all our Patreon. I forgot to thank you guys, but your support is incredible. We just renew our subscription to Spreaker, and we pay this live stream thing. So thanks for helping us pay our bills. And we'll try to be back as soon as possible, uh, and maybe do some special episode just for you. Thanks, Alistair.
Cheers. Speak soon.